I stood on my porch in Eugene, Oregon, holding a package that had been returned to me. The box was covered in red stamps, returned to sender. Inside was the teddy bear I'd spent 3 weeks sewing for my granddaughter. My hands shook as snow began to fall around me. She didn't even open it, I whispered to no one. For 6 months, my son's new wife Lauren had refused to let me meet little Lily. Every gift came back. Every call went unanswered. I felt like a ghost in my own family's life. But then something caught my eye, a small piece of paper tucked inside the wrapping. I pulled out the paper carefully. It was a child's drawing, done in bright crayon, a yellow sunflower with a smiling face. At the bottom, in wobbly letters, someone had written thank you. My heart nearly stopped. Someone in that house had opened my gift. Someone knew I existed. Lily knew about me. Tears streamed down my face as I held that simple drawing like it was made of gold. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table and began creating something new, a handmade storybook. I titled it The Girl and the Sunflower. If I couldn't see her, maybe my words could reach her instead. 2 days later, I drove to Springfield where my son Mark lived with his family. I parked down the street from their house, watching. The curtains were drawn tight. A few toys lay scattered in the yard, but the house felt cold somehow. I gathered my courage and walked to the front door. I knocked 3 times. Silence. I knocked again. Nothing. My chest ached. Then I heard a car pull up behind me. I turned to see Lauren stepping out, her eyes hard and distant. She walked toward me slowly. "Please leave us alone," she said in a voice like ice. No explanation. No kindness. Just those 5 words that broke my heart all over again. I found myself at a small coffee shop called Maple and Steam. The smell of fresh coffee and cinnamon filled the air. I ordered tea and sat in the corner, trying not to cry. The young barista, a man named Tom who was studying social work, noticed my tears. "Rough day?" he asked gently. I told him everything, about Lily, about Lauren's coldness, about feeling shut out of my own family. Tom listened without judgment. "Maybe it's time to stop reaching out," he suggested carefully. I shook my head. "I can't stop loving family," I said quietly. He smiled sadly, like he understood something I didn't yet know. A week passed. I returned to Maple and Steam, needing that small comfort again. Tom greeted me with a smile and held up something shiny. "You dropped this last time," he said, handing me my old nurse's bracelet. I hadn't even realized it was missing. The bracelet was engraved with 2 words, always care. It had been a gift when I retired after 30 years of nursing. Tom read it and grinned. "That should be your motto." I thanked him and fastened it back on my wrist. As I left the cafe, I noticed something strange, a gray Honda with tinted windows parked across the street. And someone inside was watching me. The gray Honda followed me for 3 days. Every time I left my house, it appeared in my rearview mirror. At first, I thought I was being paranoid. But on the 3rd day, I pulled over suddenly and got out of my car. The Honda stopped too. I walked toward it, my heart pounding. As I got closer, I could see an older woman behind the wheel, her face hidden by shadows. "Who are you?" I called out. But before I could reach the car, she started the engine and sped away, tires screeching. I stood there shaking, confused and frightened. The next morning, I found an envelope on my doorstep. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside was a photograph of Mark's family, him, Lauren, and little Lily at a park. But there was something else. A note, written in careful handwriting, "She's lying to you. Protect the child." No signature. No return address. My mind raced. Who sent this? What was Lauren lying about? Was Lily in danger? I felt sick. That afternoon, I took the photo to Tom at the cafe. He studied it seriously, then looked at me with concern. "Evelyn, I think you need to go to the police." But something stopped me. I needed to know more first. I needed to find that woman in the gray car. 3 days later, I received a text from an unknown number, Hendricks Park. "Tomorrow. Noon. Alone." I knew I should tell someone, but curiosity and worry pushed me forward. The next day, I went to the park and sat on a bench near the entrance. Minutes felt like hours. Then she appeared, the older woman from the car. She sat beside me without a word. "Who are you?" I asked. She looked tired, frightened even. "I worked for Lauren's mother before she died," she said quietly. "There are things you don't know about your granddaughter. Things Lauren is hiding." Before I could ask more, she stood up quickly. "Be careful," she whispered, then disappeared into the trees. That night, the news reported a car found abandoned at Hendricks Park. The abandoned car belonged to the mysterious woman. Police found no identification inside, just an empty purse and a scarf I recognized from our meeting. I called the tip line and spoke to an officer. He took my statement but warned me, "Ma'am, stay out of this. Let us handle it." But I couldn't. That woman had risked something to warn me. The next morning, I opened my mailbox to find another note. This one was different, just an address and a time, Evergreen Hospice. Tomorrow. 3 p.m. My stomach twisted. A hospice? Was someone dying? I thought about calling Tom, asking him to come with me. But something told me I needed to go alone. I arrived at Evergreen Hospice exactly at 3. The building was quiet, peaceful. Inside, soft music played. The receptionist looked up at me and smiled like she'd been expecting me. "She's waiting for you," she said, pointing down a hallway. My heart pounded as I walked past room after room. Finally, I reached the last door. I pushed it open slowly. A pale woman lay in the hospital bed, connected to tubes and monitors. She looked so weak, so fragile. But when she saw me, she smiled faintly. I stepped closer, confused. Then she spoke, and my world tilted. "I'm Lauren," she whispered. I staggered backward. "What?" I breathed. "The woman living with your son," she said weakly, "isn't me." I sank into the chair beside her bed, my mind spinning. "I don't understand," I said. The woman, the real Lauren, took a shaky breath. "We're identical twins," she explained. "My sister's name is Kara. I got sick 2 years ago. Cancer. I knew I was dying." Tears filled her eyes. "I asked Kara to take my place, to pretend to be me. To protect Lily. I felt like I was drowning." "Protect her from what?" I whispered. Lauren's hand reached for mine. "From the truth. From the pain. From everything I couldn't be anymore." My throat tightened. I thought of all those months, all that rejection. It hadn't been Lauren at all. It was her twin, trying to hold together a family that was falling apart. Lauren coughed, and I grabbed a tissue for her. When she caught her breath, she continued. "There's something else," she said. "Lily inherited a rare genetic condition. It came from your late husband's family line." My heart stopped. My husband had died 15 years ago. I never knew about any genetic condition. "Kara thought you would blame yourself if you found out," Lauren whispered. "She thought keeping you away was protecting everyone." Anger and sadness crashed through me. All this time, I'd been kept in the dark to shield me from guilt I didn't deserve. "Tell Mark I forgive him," Lauren suddenly gasped, her body seized by violent coughing. Nurses rushed in. I was pushed into the hallway, my head spinning with revelations. I stood in the hospice hallway, trying to breathe. Then I saw him. My son Mark, standing near the entrance, his face pale and guilty. "Mom," he said quietly. I walked toward him, tears streaming. "You knew," I said. It wasn't a question. He nodded slowly. "I knew about Kara pretending to be Lauren. I knew about Lily's condition. I knew everything." My hand flew to my mouth. "How could you keep this from me?" He looked broken. "Lauren made me promise. She thought it was the only way." We stood in painful silence. Then I asked the question that had been haunting me. "Who's been sending me the notes? The warnings?" Mark shook his head, his eyes confused. "Not me," he said. "I thought you'd figured it out on your own." Over coffee at a diner near the hospice, Mark told me everything. 6 months ago, as Lauren's condition worsened, he'd met someone, a nurse named Allison who'd cared for Lauren during her treatments. "I didn't mean for it to happen," Mark said, his voice cracking. "But Allison was there when everything was falling apart." I reached across the table and held his hand. "Does Kara know?" I asked. He nodded. "She found out 3 weeks ago. That's when she started pulling away from everyone, even me." My chest ached for all of them, for Lauren dying in that hospice room, for Mark torn between grief and unexpected love, for Kara carrying an impossible burden, and for little Lily caught in the middle of it all. Allison met us at the diner an hour later. She was soft-spoken, with kind eyes that reminded me of myself when I was younger. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Hayes," she said immediately. "I never wanted to cause pain." I studied her face. There was genuine care there, genuine remorse. "Lauren asked me to look after Mark when she was gone," Allison confessed. "She told me he'd need someone, and that Lily would need a mother figure who understood her condition." My eyes widened. Lauren had planned this? Allison reached into her purse and pulled out a sealed envelope. "She gave me this to give to you. She said you'd know when the right time came." The envelope had my name written in Lauren's shaky handwriting. I opened Lauren's letter right there at the table. Her words were beautiful and heartbreaking. "Dear Evelyn, by the time you read this, you'll know the truth. I'm sorry for the distance. I asked Kara to raise Lily until everything could be revealed properly. She promised me she'd stay until Lily was ready. But then the letter ended abruptly mid-sentence, but if Kara disappears." My blood ran cold. I looked at Mark. "When's the last time you saw Kara?" His face went pale. 3 days ago. She said she needed time to think. I stood up quickly. "We need to find her. Now." We drove to Kara's house in Portland, but when we arrived, the place was empty. Neighbors said she'd left suddenly. Her phone was disconnected. And on the porch, I found Lily's favorite stuffed bear. Panic set in. We drove to the family's old mountain cabin, the place Mark and Lauren had spent their honeymoon. The road was dark and winding, my heart racing with every turn. When we finally arrived, the cabin was lit from inside. Mark rushed to the door and threw it open. There, on the couch, was Lily, sleeping peacefully under a blanket. But Kara was nowhere. We searched every room, calling her name. Nothing. Then, through the window, I saw flashing blue and red lights. Police cars were pulling up the driveway. A detective stepped out and walked toward us with a grim expression. Are you Mark Hayes? He asked. Mark nodded. The detective sighed. We found a car near the river. Registered to Kara Hayes. She wasn't inside, but... At the police station, a detective handed us a flash drive recovered from Kara's abandoned car. You need to see this, he said quietly. We sat in a small room as the video played. Kara's face filled the screen, exhausted, tear-streaked, but calm. If you're watching this, it means I couldn't do it anymore, she began. I tried to be my sister. I tried to live her life, love her family, and protect her daughter. But I'm not Lauren. I never will be. She wiped her eyes. Lily deserves to know the truth, that she had two mothers who loved her more than life itself. Please make sure she grows up knowing that. The video ended. I broke down completely. Then, from behind us, a small voice spoke. Grandma? I turned to see Lily standing in the doorway, her big eyes staring at me. They found Kara the next morning. She checked herself into a mental health facility 2 counties away, overwhelmed by grief and the weight of pretending. She was safe, just broken. Meanwhile, Lauren's condition worsened. The hospice called us in. We rushed back, Mark, Allison, and I, with little Lily holding my hand tightly. Lauren was barely conscious when we arrived. But when she saw us all together, her eyes filled with peace. Now you can love freely, she whispered to Mark. He knelt beside her bed, sobbing. I leaned close and whispered, she'll never forget you. I promise. Lauren smiled faintly, squeezed my hand once, and then her breathing slowed. Within minutes, she was gone. And in that moment, despite all the pain, I felt something like grace. Weeks passed slowly. Kara remained in treatment, and Mark moved in with me temporarily, bringing Lily with him. My quiet house suddenly filled with laughter and tiny footsteps. I read Lily's stories every night, the same storybook I'd made for her months ago. Allison visited often, gentle and patient, never pushing but always present. One evening, I watched Mark and Allison sitting on the porch together, talking softly while Lily played in the yard. Guilt had been replaced by something tentative and tender. Healing was happening, slowly but surely. Then, while cleaning out some of Lauren's old belongings, I found one last letter tucked inside her storybook. My name was on it. This was the final piece of her story. I sat alone in my bedroom and opened Lauren's final letter. Dear Evelyn, it began. Kindness never dies, it just changes hands. I've watched you from a distance, seen how you love without condition. That's why I'm leaving this to you. Attached to the letter was a bank certificate. My hands shook as I read the amount, $150,000. Lauren's life savings. Use this to build something beautiful for Lily and others like her, she wrote. A place where sick children can feel joy, where families can find hope. You'll know what to do. I cried for an hour, overwhelmed by her trust, her vision, and her belief that even in death, love could still create something lasting. 6 months later, I stood in my transformed backyard. What had once been a simple garden was now something magical, a children's support home for kids with chronic illnesses. Bright murals covered the walls. Sunflowers grew everywhere. There were play areas, quiet reading corners, and spaces where families could gather without fear or judgment. I named it the Sunflower House, after Lily's drawing that had given me hope in my darkest moment. The grand opening was scheduled for next week. Neighbors, doctors, and families had already signed up to visit. I stood in the center of it all, exhausted but deeply happy. Then the mailman arrived with a letter addressed to the founder of the Sunflower House. I opened it with trembling hands. The letter was from Tom, the barista from Maple and Steam who disappeared after everything fell apart. I thought he'd just moved on, but the truth was far more surprising. Dear Evelyn, he wrote. I need to confess something. I'm not just a barista. I'm an investigative journalist. I'd been following a story about Evergreen Hospice, reports of mismanagement and patient neglect. But when I met you, everything changed. Your kindness, your persistence, it led me to uncover not just hospital corruption, but a story of real love and sacrifice. He included a newspaper clipping with the headline, Local Grandma's Kindness Sparks Statewide Hospice Reform. Because of my questions and persistence, an investigation had been launched. Lives had been saved. I sat stunned. I'd never meant to be a hero. I just wanted to love my family. The opening day of the Sunflower House was perfect. Warm sunshine, clear skies, and dozens of families arriving with children who needed exactly what Lauren had envisioned. Lily ran through the garden, her laughter ringing like bells. Kara had been released from treatment and stood quietly near the sunflowers, watching her niece play. We hugged for a long time, both of us crying, both of us finally free to grieve and heal. Mark and Allison stood under the old oak tree, the same tree where I'd once collapsed in tears months ago. He got down on one knee and pulled out a ring. She said yes, tears streaming. I watched it all unfold, my heart so full it hurt. And in that moment, I swear I heard Lauren's voice on the wind, now she has 2 mothers. Tonight, I'm rocking Lily to sleep in the room that once belonged to Mark when he was a boy. She's wearing pajamas covered in sunflowers, clutching her teddy bear, the one I'd sewn all those months ago. Tell me the story again, Grandma, she whispers. So I do. I tell her about a woman who loved her so much she made impossible choices. I tell her about kindness that grows like flowers even in the hardest soil. Sometimes, love hides behind fear, and truth behind silence, I whisper. But kindness never stops growing. Lily's eyes flutter closed. Outside the window, the Sunflower House glows softly in the evening light, filled with laughter and hope. And I know, somehow, that Lauren is smiling. Because in the end, love always finds its way home. Please like and subscribe for more exciting stories like this. Let me know in the comments section where you are watching from and share your stories. I would love to hear from you. Hope to see you soon. Thank you for watching.